Hey, Lead Up listeners, Mike Harbour, another great episode of the Lead Up podcast. Really excited to have Mike Patton with you today as a guest on the Lead Up podcast. Mike has spent a lifetime of learning from entrepreneurs. He once was the visionary for EOS, which stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. I've been a student of that teaching for a long time. The books that Mike and his partners have read, listening to the podcast. So we're going to learn a lot about why process and systems and discipline are so important in leadership today. No matter what size organization you're in, it's usually a breakdown in the process or system that create most of our challenges in leadership. So Mike, welcome to the Lead Up podcast. Certainly grateful to have you here today.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be here. I appreciate you inviting me to join.
Yes, thanks so much. Hey, before we get started, as you and I were talking in the green room, your background is working mostly with small to mid-sized businesses. My background is working with more kind of mid-size and up businesses. But let's talk about EOS, what it is, help that audience that we're talking to today understand kind of where you're coming from, and then we'll apply it to more of their situation as we go forward in the conversation.
Yeah, you bet. It's a great place to start. So, starting at a very high level, and then I'll go a layer deep and let you chime in as you see fit. At a very high level, EOS is just a system, a set of tools and disciplines for running an entrepreneurial company. Entrepreneurial meaning growth oriented, open minded, aware that you need to create value before you ask for anything in return. The owners and leaders of these companies are typically open-minded, want help, want to take the business to the next level, without and instill some discipline and accountability, but without killing the entrepreneurial spirit in their organizations. And most of our clients, about 80% of our clients, are 10 to 250 employees. A handful smaller, and quite a number of larger organizations also running on EOS.
Yeah, so let's talk about the mindset that's required to install. You mentioned the term discipline. Everybody likes to think they're disciplined, but it's really hard, right? I tell people I'm very disciplined, and if I go get on the scale, I realize I'm not as disciplined as I think I am. But let's talk about the mindset of discipline it takes and why getting yourself in that right frame is important before trying to install a new process or system into something that you're trying to fix in your organization.
Yeah, this is something that is required when you're trying to grow and scale a business. When it's no longer you or a handful of people you're close enough to influence every day, need to go execute complex things really, really well, no matter the level of experience they have in your organization. And so, in order for that to work as you grow to 10 and 50 and 100 and 400 and 4,000 employees, there needs to be a playbook. There needs to be a set of rules we play by organizationally. There needs to be a set of processes that people interacting with our organization, be they employees or customers or investors or stakeholders, experience. So there's a feel to our organization that we feel comfortable with as owners or leaders, that's what we're creating every day. And so if we aren't managing those impressions that are being made every time somebody interacts with a person who's a representative of our organization, well, then our brand is at risk, because people are doing it whatever way suits them the best. Mm-hmm. There's no consistency. There's no execution discipline whatsoever. And so that's why, to grow and scale a business, you need to bring a little bit of structure, a little bit of discipline, and a little bit of accountability. Again, hopefully without killing its creativity and entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, that's so good. What is your experience? I know you're probably like me. You walk into a business and you're probably a little more in tune to a company that's doing things well versus a company that's not doing things well. And obviously, our listeners are leaders. They want to know, okay, what's the benefit of me even listening to this conversation? What's the benefit of having a good process or system in place? And maybe talk about an experience where you've had where a company's doing it really well and maybe a company that's not doing it so well.
Yeah, I mean, again, when we talk about growth orientation, I'll just create a little context before we dive into that subject. When we talk about growth orientation, my clients aren't always looking to turn their 100-person company into a 10,000-person company. Sometimes they're looking to turn a 100-person company that's difficult and unpredictable and frustrating into a 100-person company that's generating a consistently decent profit, that there are fewer surprises every week, month, quarter, or year in the
Mm-hmm.
way the year plays out. Like, so that definition of doing it well has so many different flavors to it that it's hard to really focus on that. Now,
That's good.
I will say most of your listeners, without the level of experience you and I have working with leadership teams or leaders of these organizations, experience this same conclusion. Like, you go out to a restaurant and it's not very crowded, and yet service is slow, the quality of food is poor, the server gets your order wrong, etc. Nobody's apologizing or checking in on you to see how things are going. You can see the wait staff and the kitchen staff sort of standing around not doing anything. Like, if you're just paying attention to the way a machine operates when you interact with the business, I think most people see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to an like, I love going into a restaurant that's jam packed and the servers are overworked because there's more people there than their little legs can carry
Mm-hmm.
them to quickly enough. But you can tell in that organization that the person you're interacting with cares about whether or not they're delivering a great experience. And they're walking around the dining room looking to make eye contact with people who need help. I mean, that's the sign of a healthy business full of people who care about the results they deliver. And the fact that it took too long to get my dinner isn't something that I hold against the business, because it took too long to get my dinner because everybody else wants to eat there too. And guess what? The person who owns and runs that business is happier and making more money than the person who owns and runs the struggling business. And so
Yeah.
that's what bringing discipline and accountability to an organization, and hiring and retaining the right people who have the sort of internal drive to be great at whatever it is your business needs them to do. That's where that comes in. If you want that kind of business, you need to build a mechanism for ensuring you hire and retain the right people, and they do things the way you want them to do it to deliver that experience to the consumer.
Yeah, such a great answer. Didn't know where you were going to go with that, but I just experienced kind of what Mike described today. I have, Mike, I built a new house. I moved into it not even a year and a half ago, and my house has two heating and cooling units, one upstairs, one downstairs, and I've had trouble with both of them. I mean, literally, the day we moved in, the heater in the upstairs didn't work. I had to replace the drum. This is all like new main, came out of the factory, broke. But I had to call. It's Mike's in Minnesota, so he's not experiencing this yet. I'm in Arkansas. We're already turning our air conditioner on in Arkansas a little bit, Mike. But my
And
downstairs.
why kick a man when he's down, Mike?
That's right. That's right. But I turned my cooling unit on downstairs Saturday, and it did not cool. Um, anyway, I have the owner of the company that installed the unit in our house. I called him on Saturday. He didn't call me back, but I got a call first thing this morning, Monday morning. I called him on Saturday. He called me, Monday. So, and what I love about every experience I've had with his company. So we've been here a year and a half, and we've had multiple issues. Unfortunately, it's not his fault. It were manufacturing issues. Like, these units came off the manufacturing floor flawed. But what we've experienced in dealing with his company is great customer service. Like, they follow up, they call back, they do what they say they're going to do. The technicians that come out to fix our units are friendly. They put booties on their shoes to not get my carpet. I mean, they do the little things, right, that make a
Yep.
difference. And you can certainly tell they've got processes in place to hire the right people and to deliver great service on the end. So the customer feels that, certainly. I don't know if you want to speak into that a little bit more, but that's just a recent, I had that experience just today.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen without the people in charge sitting down and architecting what they want interactions with their business to look and feel like,
Mhm.
and then creating the tools to train everybody in that organization, including a brand new hire, how to consistently deliver on that. And one of the reasons this is hard for smaller organizations is a lot of times the owner or senior leader in this organization didn't rely on a process manual to deliver great service like the owner of your HVAC company. What we do as visionary entrepreneurs, what entrepreneurs are great at, and they don't really stop to think about it because we're all running around like chickens with our heads cut off. What we're really good at is we repeat the things that seem to work really well. Like,
Mm.
hey, I put booties on my shoes and it made me more efficient and the client appreciated it, right? I'm going to
Mhm.
do that again. In fact, I'm going to tell all my employees to do that because that creates a positive impression, right? So
Mhm.
that's how an entrepreneur builds an organization that does what you just described, by figuring it out through trial and error. And so then when I go and talk about process to an entrepreneur who didn't need a process manual or a video library full of process documentation that's illustrating how to do key things, they're like, well, I didn't need that and I figured it out. Why can't I just hire great people who are capable of figuring it out themselves?
Mhm.
And so that's the barrier in a smaller company. The barrier in a larger company is often overwrought attitudes about process. Like what we say in an EOS company, Mike, is we take a 20/80 approach to improving the process component in an operating business. And what that means is we document 20% of the steps in a handful of core processes to get 80% of the stuff we need done right every time, done the right and best way.
Mm.
So
That's good.
20/80 approach. A lot of times in a bigger organization, it's what I like to call the 100-100-100 approach. We want to document 100% of the steps in 100% of the processes to get 100% compliance. And then two lousy things happen in a bigger organization when you do it that way. One is nobody looks at the process because it's such a big process, it's unwieldy and unhelpful and hard to find the thing you're struggling with. Or or you create a group of people who aren't able to think for themselves and discern when it's necessary to consult the process manual and when I'm just supposed to figure it out for myself. And so
Mm.
that's how this stuff plays out and why it's so important. And either approach can work. I just think the 20/80 approach gets you where you want to go faster without any of the negative consequences.
Yeah, that's really good. We were talking about, I wrote this book, Quit Losing Talent. It's got 20 tactics in it, but usually when I'm working with a company, I say if we can get, there's five of them. If you
Yeah.
implement these five,
Yeah.
you'll get to where you want to go when it comes to recruiting and attracting and keeping people, right? Creating what I call a stay culture. Um, we can't, you're not going to get all 20 of them right. There's too many moving parts, too many
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. Let's talk about myths for a minute. You've got three myths that you talk about in your book process. Um, Lead Up podcast listeners, we're talking to Mike Patton, co-author of the book Process: How Discipline and Consistency Will Set You and Your Business Free. I love that term, freedom. I want to be free, right? So if you're a leader and you find yourself stressed out, burned out, overwhelmed, this might be a book that you pick up and reference in some of the leadership that you're doing. But Mike talks about three myths. One being process is not in my nature. Process takes too much time. Process destroys freedom. Mike, I want to give you a chance to kind of talk about each one of those and bust, be a myth buster, right? You remember that show Mythbusters? I'll let you be a
Yeah, I
myth
do.
buster for a minute.
I do, and thus the title of that section of the book. So yeah, the process is not in my nature, is what I said about entrepreneurs earlier. We are kind of naturally process oriented. We didn't have to think about it. We certainly didn't write it down.
Mm.
We just sort of innately adopt the things that work and reject the things that don't work, and we end up with a process we're able to follow consistently because we've developed habits. And once a visionary entrepreneur develops a habit that works for him or her, it's really difficult to move that visionary off that habit. Okay.
Mhm.
We're sure this is the right way to do it. And now we want everybody else in the world to do it our way, even if their gifts and our gifts are two completely different things. Okay.
Mm.
So, so that's the process is not in my nature. And it's just not true. If you assign process orientation to mean I believe in the need for a detailed process manual around every minutia related thing that happens in our business, that's not what you need to be in order for process to work well in your business. You just need to know that as you have 100 or 1,000 employees, you can't count on all of them to be process oriented naturally and instinctively in the same way.
Yeah.
And at some point, when you have everybody in your company figuring out their own way to do important things, that starts to break. It starts to make it too hard to manage. It starts to lead to inconsistent results. You might have, using the restaurant analogy, you might have 6 different restaurants, and at one of them, you're having the fabulous experience that I just described earlier. But at another one, there's a terrible experience. And so if somebody goes to the terrible restaurant first, their attitude about your whole organization goes to heck in a handbasket. So
Mm.
that's the first myth. The it's too hard, it's not worth it myth is just again related to the thinking that you have to document every step and every process. A high level approach really works well. And one of the little inside jokes I'll share with my leadership teams is I'll say, listen, I don't want you to think your job is teaching a major league pitcher what to do when the count is full and there are 3 guys on base and it's the 9th inning and you got to strike them out. That's too complicated and too detailed.
Mm.
I just want you to put a process manual together that'll teach a 6-year-old how to play t-ball. Keep it simple, focus on the basics. How do we hold the bat? Where do we put our feet in the batter's box? Keep it simple and build from there.
Mm.
So that's how we break that myth, is just if you keep it simple and get the basics done well, the middle and difficult steps tend to take care of themselves.
Mm.
And then the freedom myth, I can't tell you how many clients of mine have stared me right in the face and said, Peyton, I don't want a bunch of zombie robots walking around my organization not wanting to think for themselves. I want a group of people who can figure it out themselves. And the problem with that myth is if everybody's busy responding to things that have broken because your line level people, your frontline folks aren't interacting with your clients or customers the way you want them to, then they're so busy cleaning up messes and replacing employees who have either quit or been fired because of that inconsistency that they don't have time to be free and innovative and creative and automate things or implement AI in the business to make them more efficient. Like nobody has any time to do that in an organization where the basics aren't being done consistently well because you're fixing the messes that are being made.
Yeah, that's so good. Just a couple of things I want to share with our listeners based on those what you just shared. Number one, that freedom. I spend a significant amount of my time in coaching, helping leaders equip people around them to delegate, to delegate responsibility to, right? Everybody calls it delegation. I call it equipping, but just teaching them a process of how to equip Peyton how to do, this thing that I'm doing that's costing me too much time so I can go do something else. And there's a process for really equipping somebody well, and so we teach that. The other thing I
Love that.
teach, uh, Peyton, is that I use AI. I think, some people are afraid of AI, right? I was just teaching a leader yesterday. I was coaching a leader. She just got promoted in her organization. And unfortunately, I don't know how many times you've seen this, unfortunately, she got promoted, but the person they promoted to take her places hasn't been equipped well to take her
Mhm.
place, right? There wasn't real
Yeah.
succession. And now she's overwhelmed with trying to teach this person that she promoted that was on her team how to do the job that she's now no longer responsible for while she does her other job. And so I coached her to use AI like you and I, as we talk right now. I have a tool that's transcribing every word that you and I say. I use a tool called Otter. And so I challenge leaders, like, get an AI tool, a transcription tool on your phone, and communicate the process on your phone. So, because most
Yep.
people say, I don't have time to sit down and write all that out. I don't have time to sit down and type it out. But in a 15-minute commute, you can dictate a bunch of processes, and then you take that and you modify it and then train people up to that, right? And so,
That's right. That's
just
the critical step,
yeah,
right? Is you're going to take a generic process. Now let's make it unique to our business and how we want to do it.
that's
And
right.
as long as you follow that step, man, is that a great fast track for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and again, it is really difficult. And I know I've been self-employed for a long time. There's way you kind of punched me in the gut earlier, like, Mike, there's ways you do things that other people aren't going to be able to do it that way. Um, and you're right. You're right. Just documenting those systems is critical. Even I could do a better job of that. You have a couple different sections in your book. I want to give you a chance to talk about that. I think will help our listeners. You have a benefits of process and a cost of maybe not having process. I'd like to talk about cost first, and then we
Yeah.
come back to the benefit, because there is a cost, right? When we don't have good processes and systems in place, it's gonna impact our bottom line, our freedom, our time, our recruitment and retention of new people. I'll let you speak into that, just from where what you want to share that would most help us.
Yeah, there's in the neighborhood of a dozen benefits, and a lot of the costs are sort of the opposite of said benefits. So, on the people stuff in your space, you see this as gl- gloriously as anybody else would. When you don't have processes for hiring, onboarding, uh, providing performance management, developing people, and gracefully offboarding people, what ends up happening is you're spending a lot more time and money filling open seats. Okay.
Mhm.
As an example. So the cost is wasted time and money strengthening your people component.
Mhm.
Okay. The benefit is somebody with a great hiring process, a strong employer brand, hiring managers who understand the importance of responding immediately when they're in the hiring process, because it's a competition, right? And
Mhm.
if you got a quality candidate out there that's interviewing with 3 or 4 people and they hear from you last, you've lost the derby, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's those kinds of things. The benefit is you attract the best people, they want to stay, and where you find your best next hire is the friends or former coworkers of the great people you're hiring and onboarding well, because once you do it really well in a memorable way, those are the people who call the high performers at the companies they used to work for and say, hey, ABC company where I'm at today did all the things we used to be frustrated together
Mhm.
at XYZ company really, really well. I think you should give this a look.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just this exponential engine, Mike, that I want my clients and I want your listeners and viewers to stop having to do the same basic things over and over and over again themselves, and clean up the messes being made by people at the front lines or in mid management, because you haven't stopped the presses and said, hey, the way we do this is going to give us a huge competitive advantage. So we're going to invest some time and energy to teach you the right way to do it and stand out from the crowd. And therefore, our whole organization and you as a manager are going to benefit, because do you think it's harder or easier to manage a team of highly capable individuals? Like, it's easier.
Yeah, amen.
So that's the whole spirit of the book. I think you can sense my frustration here. The whole spirit of the book is, I know there's a million reasons why you shouldn't spend time and energy on this subject, but I'm telling you, if you just will, man, the benefits vastly outweigh the costs.
Yeah. Yeah, I often say, though, if you say you don't have time, my next question is do you have time not to, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
goes back to what John Wooden used to say. I
that's
think
right.
you know the quote. I'll let you share the
Yeah.
quote.
Yeah, it's if you don't have time to do it right, when are you going to find time to do it over again?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's the problem we're trying to solve here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what my book Quit Losing Talent's all about is getting those systems in place to decrease the frustration. Look, how I got in this business, Mike, was I started I came out of the Army in 1998. I wanted to be a hospital CEO. My background is healthcare operations. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I went to work for a headhunting firm. They hired me out of the Army to help them start a healthcare recruiting arm. And so I started recruiting healthcare executives for hospitals around the country. And and then when I started my own business, I left that business for a little while, went back into operations, and then I decided, yeah, that's not what I want to do. Because I knew I was going to have to move. Being a hospital CEO is really hard. You got to move around a lot if you want to grow up, and I did that enough in the Army. I wasn't going to do that in my civilian life. So I started my own business. I started as a headhunter, never loved it, but I knew I could start a business and make money and get some footing. And then after about 3 or 4 years of doing that, I started doing the training, coaching, consulting stuff that I'm doing now because it's more relational. It's more has more lasting impact. But what I learned in that recruiting was it's very transactional. One of the things that helped me be successful in my recruiting business is I started coaching. Like I was doing hiring manager and recruit coaching. Like for 6 months, we offered that. Like to make sure that placement stuck,
Right.
right? Because all these companies wanted a guarantee that, hey, if your placement leaves, you pay us the money back or you replace them, right? And I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
responsible for that. You are. And you find out how poor the systems are for onboarding and developing people. I'll let you speak into that.
Well, yeah, and for good reason, right? Like I work exclusively with people who are trying to put 20 pounds of manure in a 10-pound bag, Mike. And it's really important that
Yeah.
you and I show up as empathetic, understanding
Yeah.
folks who don't live in the day-to-day, because the day-to-day is oppressive. And hospital administration, I mean, I can't think of a job full of more unpredictable curveballs than that. And so I
Absolutely.
respect the hell out of your service to our country. Thank you for that. I respect the hell out of the people that are in that space. It is a really tough business to run. It's life or death matters every day.
Mhm.
You got trouble hiring people because it's just a tough line of work, and you have to have a certain disposition in order to be successful in it. And there aren't enough people in most of these organizations. So
That's
every
right.
time I interact with a healthcare professional, they're working 55, 60 hours a week. How are you supposed to be good at your job every day? And so anyway, I want everybody to hear me say, I empathize with how hard this is, and I don't want
Absolutely.
this to sound like some throwaway panacea. It does require hard work and effort, but over time, it pays such phenomenal long-term dividends. It's worth the short-term pain to get to a point where stuff you have to manage yourself every single day starts getting done really well by people 2 or 3 layers away from you in your organization, because you've strengthened the process component of the business. That's why this work is important.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, well said, for sure. It is tough business. Let's 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 cover one more thing here that I'm just trying to hit all the sections of your book and give some highlights so people will go grab a copy and know how important it is. The followed by all segment, I think so important, right? So I'll let you speak into that. Talk about FBA and
Yeah.
how we make that happen, number one, because that's important too.
Yeah, well, so one of the analogies I like to use is if you want to win the triathlon, you probably have to complete all three events. And so, getting committed to doing the process work is event number one.
Mhm.
Documenting and simplifying your core processes is event number two. Changing behaviors, getting your processes followed by all is event number three.
Mm.
And
So
so
good.
many companies commit, document and simplify, create a process manual or a video library or workflow diagrams or however they do it. But then that stuff sits on a shelf gathering dust. And so
Mm.
followed by all is just four things. Conduct training, and I mean good training.
Mhm.
Training where the participants are engaged in the conversation and they understand the why, not just the who, what, when, where, and how, right?
Mhm.
And they're given an opportunity to push back and further refine the process and help make it better because that promotes buy-in, right?
Mhm.
It gets people on board when they feel like they're involved in the process of getting important stuff done really well. So training is step one.
That's good.
Step two is measurement. And this comes from a long stint as a leadership team member for a sales and service training company, where I learned very pointedly that training without reinforcement doesn't stick. People can get trained at the best training event ever, and ultimately they're going to revert to their old habits unless there's some kind of reinforcement protocol. And the reinforcement protocol that seems to work the best is measuring compliance, frequency, and outcome. Are you doing it right? Are you doing it often enough? And are you getting the desired result? And if you give an employee who wants to be great at his or her job access to data that tells them whether they're doing it right often enough and getting desired results, and they want to be great, they'll self-manage to more consistently follow the new process that they've learned.
That's great.
But that leads us to step number three in the FBA checklist, which is what we call LMA, or management. LMA stands for leadership, management, and accountability. You got to lead and manage in a way that accountable people love and non-accountable people want to leave because they don't want to be accountable, right?
Mhm.
And so you got to hold people accountable to following the process and getting the desired result. If there are no benefits of doing so or consequences for failing to do so, behavior is not going to change.
Mm.
And then the fourth bullet is just an annual checkup to make sure the process is still valid. The world is changing so fast now. You mentioned AI. Most processes need to be updated right now to include AI in a step that will speed something up by a magnitude of 10.
Mhm.
And a year from now, my guess is AI will have progressed so far that they'll need to be updated again. And so we just ask our clients to haul every core process out once a year and look for additional opportunities to simplify, streamline, and automate so you stay ahead of the competitive curve and your people are doing things better, stronger, faster than your competition. And that's how we get the processes followed by all.
Love that. Yeah, there's I love the whole behavior change. That's what we really try to do here at Harbour Resources when we go into a company. We do really good training, we believe, with engagement, lots of interactive, workshops, those kind of things. Follow that by coaching. We provide for the clients that want to, obviously it's not cheap to provide one-on-one coaching, but we do that through one-on-one coaching. And then we have a digital coaching tool that is really designed to have every leader select a new behavior they're going to track for 30 days, right? And then we track that and we check in with them daily through it's a digital tool, right? It sends you a message, Mike, and says, "Hey, don't forget to do this today." It's more involved than that, but That's really how because you hit the nail on the head, right? It's really all about behavior change. We're all
That's
creatures of
right.
habit. And if we don't have something challenging us to change our behavior every day, we're just going to fall right back into our natural habits that we've designed over, depending on how old we are, maybe the last 40 years, 50 years in my case. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love that piece. Let me fix my camera again real quick. Again, I got to talking with my hands. Mike, I appreciate the conversation that you shared with us today. Lead Up listeners, Mike Payton and Lisa Gonzalez is your co-author. The
Correct.
book's called Process. You can find it's part of the Traction Library, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I love the tools and things that you guys teach. It's how discipline and consistency will set you and your business free. Mike, how does someone who might hear this today get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about the EOS system?
Yeah, you can visit the EOS Worldwide website and find access to the books and a bunch of other IP that'll help you understand EOS on the whole and the process components specifically. You can also reach out to me at mikepayton.com, MikePaton.com. And I just, urge anybody who's listening or watching that feels like what we're talking about here can help, please reach out to me. I love helping the people who own and run companies. I know it's hard, often lonely and thankless work. And when you need help, there's somebody out there who's equipped with the tools and really wants to help.
No, that's awesome. Mike, thanks so much for being a great guest on the Lead Up podcast. I appreciate you making time to speak with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure, Mike. Thanks for the great conversation and hope it helps.
Right on.